Coming up, one man's dirt racing trash is another's dirt racing treasure, plus things get worse at I-70, and the ups and downs in big-time sprint car racing, they're not for the faint of heart. Let's go. It's Tuesday, March 25th. I'm Justin Fiedler. This is DIRTRACKR Daily, presented by Kubota Genuine Parts. Today's show is being supported by BAPS Motor Speedway and SprintCarUnlimited.tv. Coming up this Sunday, BAPS will kick off an expanded 410 sprint car schedule with the first of 11 races. Sunday's program, it's going to feature some of the best sprint car teams in Central PA, joined by the 358 competitors. If you can't get to the track, watch it all live on SprintCarUnlimited.tv. The rest of the 2025 season at BAPS will feature 10 more 410 sprint car shows, including Pennsylvania Speed Week in June and the Outlaws in July. All races except the World of Outlaws event, they're going to be included in the track championship. And new this year, that BAPS point fund has grown to $20,000. The champion is going to get $5,000 of that, and then additional money has been added for drivers finishing fourth on down. It was important to track GM Colton Gauss to make sure they were taking care of their smaller teams as well as the top drivers. Head over to BAPSMotorspeedway.com to see the full schedule if you want to watch each of the 10 championship races live, including this Sunday, plus PA Speed Week, the Kevin Gobert Classic, and the season finale Sprint Showdown. You can do that all season long live over on SprintCarUnlimited.tv. Back on Saturday at Port Royal for their season opener, Anthony Macri got around Brock Zierfoss inside 10 to go and drove on to the victory. In the story of Macri's 2025 season, this feels like it could be a very pivotal moment. The Port race was one that Macri wasn't even originally scheduled to be at. When the team shared their 2025 slate back in January, they had planned on racing with the World of Outlaws through the Arrowhead Speedway weekend in early April, before then heading back to Central PA. But the opening 6 weeks of the season had not gone well for Macri and the 39M team, and they were looking for a change. From Volusia in February through Magnolia in March, the team raced 9 times and picked up just 2 top 10 finishes. Their average finish over that stretch was an incredibly pedestrian 16.9. That span included 5 finishes outside the top 15. Even a trip home to Central PA to run the icebreaker at Lincoln was not what they were looking for. Lincoln, a track that Macri has won at a lot, including with the Outlaws, but all they could manage in that race was 10th. The 39M was in the midst of one of their worst runs of performances in really a couple of years. This team, usually one of the top sprint car teams in the country, they won 15 races in 2024. At Kennedale in Texas with the Outlaws a few weeks ago, Macri and crew chief Joe Mooney decided they'd had enough. Macri shared with Jeremy Elliott they pulled down their second car in the trailer and went racing with it instead. The car they had been using was one that had previously been repaired, and maybe something wasn't right with it. Things were immediately better. Macri went out that night, went quick time on that Friday, finished 8th in the feature after a dash appearance. He backed it up with another top 10 on Saturday. And then, instead of staying on the road, the team came back home to PA and really got the boost they were looking for, driving from 7th on the starting grid to the victory on Saturday. Macri admitted to Jeremy that things were really looking down and that this Port race felt like a must-win situation. I think it's an interesting illustration of how quickly things can go south and how difficult the sprint car game is. The 39M, it wasn't terrible against the Outlaws in those early races. They had some decent speed in qualifying. They were heat racing okay. It would have been enough to fool the team into thinking maybe things were okay with that car. But then the speed, it just wasn't there in the features. Now, though, to see what they've done in 3 races on a different car, clearly that other piece has some problems, and that was what was hurting them. That's a mind frick and a half here. You hear all the time about drivers having favorite cars, and that even off the same jig, certain cars are just better than others. And with a repaired piece, who knows if maybe something isn't quite straight or it doesn't flex the same as it used to. But it's easy to see why teams can get into these pits of despair, and it can be tough to find your way out. I'd put good money down that these 3 races between Kennedale and Port, they're going to be a significant turning point in the year for Macri and Mooney. Updating a story we talked about yesterday, the news at I-70 Speedway in Missouri continues to not look good. Yesterday, we discussed the track losing Casey Schumann to Lucas Oil Speedway, and I said the schedule there for 2025 was in serious doubt. And then just hours later, yesterday afternoon, POWRi announced their slate of races at I-70 for 2025 are now all off. They were supposed to be at I-70 on April 6th and September 13th with their winged 410 Sprint Car Series, and September 6th with WAR. But in a release, the sanctioning body said they are now actively looking for alternative venues to host those events. Both wing shows were scheduled to be 10,000 to win features. The only reason given in the release for the cancellations was, quote, unforeseen facility circumstances. I believe the only other known event on the 2025 schedule for I-70 is USAC National Sprint Cars, also in September. But that September USAC date, it's actually the same as the WAR event, so that was clearly a co-sanction. And I'd say the loss of POWRi isn't a good sign for that USAC race here either. We'll stay tuned on what Kirksbridge and the USAC guys decide to do with that race. You can see the I-70 release over at POWRi.com. One last thing today, I did get tagged in this Brownstown Speedway Facebook post yesterday. I have no idea if this is real or not, but I don't have any reason to believe otherwise. The track, though, posting this photo with the caption, "Free tires, come get 'em." The Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series was at the Indiana racetrack on Saturday night, and I think the assumption here is that these were left by the Lucas teams in attendance. Teams leaving behind old tires, it's always a point of contention, and it usually draws the ire of track folks in the aftermath of really any race nights. It happens, though, a few times a year you'll see a social media post with a pile of tires somewhere and somebody not happy about having to clean them up. It seems as though it wouldn't be all of that difficult of a thing, though, to come up with some sort of tire recycling setup so these aren't just left next to some random dumpster or scattered throughout the pit area. What I will say, though, is if you're a racer, I'd be seeking these tracks out after National Tour events, because there is a lot of still very good rubber sitting there that could be had for free. And at a couple of $100 a tire, there's a few $1,000s worth of Hoosiers sitting there next to that dumpster. Back last year, I did a daily show about sprint car driver Trey Osborne and him loading up his truck with tires after a big race at Eldora. Osborne, kind of a known budget racer. And for those budget racers out there, where there is a will, there is a way. Obviously, Osborne was loading up a truck full of tires that are going to last him probably maybe the whole season, at least part of a season. And I haven't seen an update, but 24 hours later, I'd bet that pile of tires, it's now gone. That's your daily show for today. Don't forget you have a bunch of options when it comes to tuning into these episodes. If you're around the house or scrolling your phone, you can certainly watch on YouTube and Facebook. Or if you're out and about, maybe you're at work or mowing the lawn, you can listen in across podcast platforms. The Daily, it's available on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the podcast platforms. And you can also read the Daily over at DIRTRACKR.com/daily. So tune in wherever it's easiest for you. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday out there. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.